You know, fall is a time where you have a lot of different things happening in the garden. Some things are still blooming, some things are really slowing down, and after a long hot summer, that's exactly what's happening in our yard. So we thought we'd take today and give you a full garden tour and show you exactly the state of our garden, and we hope you enjoy it, so stick around. We have a lot to show you. I'm going to go ahead and start on this side of the yard, and I know I've already talked about these beautiful flowers in past garden videos, but it is worth mentioning that they have done so well in this area. Like I said before, this is a very tricky part of our yard. This bed faces the east, and we've planted a lot of different things, and that's partly due to some of my inexperience with some of these flowers early on, but I finally realized to have success here, I need to plant something that will do really well in either sun or shade, and these beautiful sun patience have really surpassed my expectations. I mean, this beautiful color, they are just nice and full. They have not stopped blooming the whole time. Those caladiums really do rely on that nice heat and humidity, and since we haven't been humid, we've been more dry, they're kind of lulling a little bit, but the sun patience are still blooming beautifully. I mean, they look magnificent. That gorgeous color, the beautiful dark green foliage is really fantastic, and these really nice tower boxwoods really, I think I've said it before, they do set a very nice framework for those beautiful blooms, especially in mid-November. I mean, they haven't stopped at all. So this is a good example of a plant that is definitely lulled in our garden this November, but on the other hand, there are some things that are definitely jumping forward, and this beautiful blue vein supertunia is doing exactly that. This was like an afterthought. I didn't really have anything to place into this hanging basket, and I already purchased all of my annuals for the year, and I didn't want to spend any extra money, and so I had this one pot that I had definitely neglected for a long time, and honestly it was looking pretty sickly, so I just thought, you know what, I'll give it some fresh soil and really amend that soil and pop it in there, give it a trim back, and then if it dies, whatever, it's no loss. I've been having it in this little tiny white half-gallon pot for forever, not really paying too much attention to it, and thought, if it does well, great. If it doesn't, I'll just rip it out. And this is what has happened since I gave it that soil amendment and a new spot and constant water instead of letting it dry out in its little can that it was in before. It clearly loves it here and is super beautiful. I mean, if you look really closely, I'm going to give you a close-up right now, you have that beautiful white color, and then the interior is a really deep, rich purple that veins out into the white, and it's really unique, and I didn't think that it was going to be this prolific, but it looks absolutely amazing. And there is only one plant in this hanging basket, which is really nice to know. And I think looking back, I think, you know, when I'm planting these hanging baskets, because I've planted these many times with multiple plants in them, and they do really well, but I seem to get better results when there's not as many plants in there for different various reasons. Obviously, they're all competing for nutrients. They are definitely a lot less compact when you have two plants, or in this case, one plant, so that allows for more airflow, and you don't get as much disease, because I've had supertunias at this time of year that really do kind of fizzle out, and they get kind of moist in the center. They start to get like a mildew, and they start to drop their leaves. This is not the case, and maybe perhaps that's because there's only one plant in here doing this amazing job of blooming so beautifully. Absolutely love that. So that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So that was a bonus for sure, especially think about it. This is mid-November, and this is what this looks like. Wow, so amazing. All right, so we have this beautiful chocolate drop coleus here that I had planted in a long time ago in a self-watering container here to hide our air conditioning unit. And when I originally planted that, it was very small, and I also had some beautiful verbena on both sides that I had planted, and there's one kind of blooming here on the side, but it's kind of fizzled out. The chocolate drop has clearly taken over. I love the growth habit of this chocolate drop. I love the deep rich brown, and I love how it trails. It's a trailing coleus, and I think that's really a nice effect here, and it does hide this area. And I really do like that the self-watering container keeps it nice and happy for a long time. Since it's not on drip, I don't really have to worry about it too much. But look at, that's one plant, by the way, filling out this whole area. That was a definite success. In the back here, we have our saffron finch supertunia there, along with the beautiful pink superbells. The pink superbells, it's interesting to see how things grow because of the shade that this hanging basket does cast on this area, especially this time of year. The superbells need a little bit more sun, so they're not pushing the growth as much, or the blooms, just like my double superbells over there on the corner in that hanging basket that kind of has lulled. But the supertunia saffron finch is doing just fine, and it's still happy with as much sun as it receives here on the east side, which is interesting because, you know, you have these two sun-loving plants, but the two pink varieties don't need as much as the one in the center because it still looks absolutely beautiful, doing really well, not fizzling out, and still providing a lot of color. Okay, so the double up pink begonias have been really super healthy this whole season, and I've been really happy with them. The blooms are beautiful. They're a little beat up right now because a couple of weeks ago we had a windstorm that came through here and kind of broke off some of our coleus. I'll show you that in a second. And really these took a beating, and so they look a little rough. I probably, until I can plant these up with some new plants, I probably could shear them off and they would come back beautifully, because a lot of the begonias from Proven Winners, especially the double up and also the Surefire, seem to really react well when they get a nice clean shear back. My mom's at her house, I've sheared them back 4 times and they've come back beautifully. None of them have died. And so it's really nice once they get a little bit scraggly. Shearing them back all the way down, in my case, has never killed them. So I might just do that very soon. So these are looking a little rough, but I'm gonna leave them for a while, maybe shear them back, and we'll see what happens. This ridiculous coleus was so beautiful right here. And then we had that windstorm and half of the plant got broken off. Things happen. It was really getting to the point where it was very tall on this side, but that's okay. I'm gonna replant this flower bed here in the spring. I might even cut it back and see if it comes back. If it doesn't, that's fine. I have a whole bunch of new ideas for this area for sure. And I know I've talked about this hanging basket a lot, but this superbells, this double superbells, double twilight superbells, has been in this basket for 3 seasons, which is incredibly remarkable. So I realize now by looking at this up close, I haven't been up close for a while, that it does need to be sprayed for budworms, because I am getting a little bit of those holes throughout some of the blooms, which will take care of it immediately. I'll spray it with BT and that will handle that, no problem. So that's remarkable that that's lasted this long, especially since it is such an old plant. Even though we don't typically freeze here and our annuals don't typically get zapped, they do eventually fizzle out after a couple seasons. So the fact that this is going on, finishing its 3rd season, is remarkable. All right, let's go on down here and let's talk about this beautiful plant that I've had so long. This is actually the lovey-dovey variety of the supertunia, and I had trimmed this all the way back. It was absolutely beautiful sitting on our white table. It was nice and full. I trimmed it back. It came back beautifully, but when it came back, it was a little bit different with some of the pink and white markings than it had been before. I don't know if there was a change down to the gene structure or whatever, but it came back different, but it looks as beautiful as it ever did, and just a little bit different in variety, which is kind of cool. All right, so this is another example of something that's lulling a little bit. Like I said before, we had that windstorm, it got kind of beat up. This is that clearance container that I put in my hanging basket because I had another hanging basket that I wanted to swap out. It has been absolutely beautiful. It's kind of slowing down just a little bit. It has superbells in it, 2 different varieties, the Great Punch and the superbells white, and then the sparkling amethyst verbena. And it's really full, and I think what I'm going to do with this is give it a nice haircut to kind of stimulate some of that growth and see what happens. And if it doesn't respond well to that, which I think it will, I'll just replace it in the spring, because I have a couple ideas for the backyard that I think are going to be a little bit different than what I've been doing recently. So that's still a win, and it didn't cost me anything to replant this because I already had the plant in there, and it was definitely worth it for sure. All right, so this is the purple and yellow container with whites that I had planted up a couple of weeks ago. In fact, the last video that you saw, and you can tell these mums are doing well. The stalks, the alyssum, the violas are doing extremely well. It's just really coming together. And then I think it's all of the plants in here are outgrowing the mums that are in the center, but that's fine. It's still beautiful. It's very cheerful, and it's a great success indeed, which wasn't too expensive. Back here we have all of our verbena that has definitely seen better days. I think what I'm going to do coming up soon is clear out all of my verbena and then trim back the boxwoods. I can't believe I'm saying that. Those boxwoods we trim back to the bare bones, and look at this. This is only one full growing season and they're already looking like they can take shape. I'm going to square them off instead of keeping them in a circle, because I really do think that that look in this area is going to be conducive to having beautiful plants that will shine in comparison to the green of the boxwoods that I love to do a lot in my garden. So that is going to be coming up very soon. But in the meantime, it's been a real success to see the beautiful flowers of the verbena while we wait for the boxwoods to come back, and they indeed have done that. So I'm really excited about that. We have the super bells there on the wall. As you can tell, if you look down the wall there, they're still blooming, kind of lulling a little bit. I probably should come in there and give them a little bit of water-soluble fertilizer. Things have been really busy, so I've been not as good as I have been at doing that. But if I come in there, I might get some more blooms even through December. We'll have to see. But still, they've been really successful, and they did great this whole season, looking absolutely beautiful. In some of my previous videos, you can see them in the background. They're just shining stars against this wall. So we'll see what we're going to plant in there next year. It's almost time to trim the roses. I usually wait till January to do that. And as we come down here, you can tell we have this really cool variety of corn that is only about, a little more than 2/3 of my height here. So this is a really cool, like, dwarf variety of corn, and the corn cobs are only that size, which, I mean, if you look at that, it's so tiny, but they're really cool. So we just harvested these yesterday. We're leaving them out so they dry, so that eventually we can use these to popcorn. And we grew these one time before, and they're really, really good. They have a really nice bite to them. And of course, more importantly, they're organic, which means they are a healthy stock for sure. So really cool. So how long do you think these were in here, Ben? Probably like 2 months or so, or
yeah,
right around
probably
there?
about 2 months.
2 months.
Pretty quick.
And then we just basically put some land and seed down here, and then some garden tone, and planted all of these just 2 months ago. It was amazing. The heat that we've had have really helped them. So really cool. So we're looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Then we've cleared out all of our peppers that we had in here. We have a couple seed cells down here that have a couple varieties of lettuce that we've planted here that are growing, and we have really good hopes that we'll be able to plant those soon, so we have some lettuce through the winter. We have a cucumber that's holding on here, and it has a little bit of fruit on there still before we clear that out, because they really do need the heat and the sun, and as it's getting cooler and cooler, you can really see the effect that it's having on this plant. But it's done really well. This is actually the second planting of our cucumbers. We've had cucumbers all summer long, which has been really nice. And then tomatoes still growing strong right here. It hasn't really produced a lot since we've gotten a lot cooler, but it does have some tomatoes on there, and I think after those are done, we're going to pull that out so we can clear this area. A basil plant here. We're going to clear out the zinnias. Obviously seen better days here. I've already trimmed back one of our eggplant plants, and it's already coming back from the base, which is kind of cool. Maybe we'll get 2 seasons out of that. But our overarching idea here is that we're going to have all of these cleared out so that in January, when our bulbs come in from color blends, we'll be able to plant up these flower beds loaded with tulips and a new variety that we haven't, or a new mix that we've never used before. And I think it'll be absolutely beautiful early in spring. One of the earliest blooming plants in the garden for sure are our tulips each year. So I'll keep you posted on that. All right, so this is our back bed here, and our roses are just finishing out, I think, their last flush before they get cut back, maybe next month or the month after. And the Bidens are blooming beautifully. I can't even tell you. These have been blooming and blooming since we hit fall. And I think it's to do with the cooler weather, because interestingly enough, in the summer, they did not produce blooms. It was just a bunch of green, which I was like, man, I thought they were gonna do really well there. I wanted it to be a focal point because, you know, I love the yellow color since we had so much yellow going on, but I think it was the heat really zapping them through. I don't think they really like that intense heat, but ever since we've cooled down, they're blooming beautifully. I mean, I have plenty of weeds in here too. This is real life, everybody. I haven't had it really much any time to do anything in the yard except for keeping them watered every once in a while, maybe just to fertilize here and there. But even then, I've been really delayed. So you're seeing what this yard really looks like with about a month of yard work and maintenance being delayed. So it's okay though, because it looks really pretty. And then by the time I come in here for the clean out of the roses, I'll just clear everything out because we'll have something new ready to plant here. But they're so pretty in the meantime. Just look at the color here. It really is nice to see that color this time of year all the way in the back. Bidens are so beautiful. All right, we've been pretty successful with this new bed that we put in. I had some really nice varieties of lettuce here in the front. We have our tomatoes here in the top bed. I've cut them back all the way to the base and they've come back, which is really interesting to see that. They're full of blooms here. We'll see if we get any more tomatoes this late in the season, which my mom has had really a lot of luck with some of her tomatoes, even in November and even into December, depending on if we're cold or if we're hot. But definitely the tomatoes do like being against the block wall because it radiates that heat and it gives them that warmth to make it through the night if we do dip down. Okay, so this is the second pot that I planted up in that last video, and it's doing beautifully here on the table. This is exactly what I wanted it to do. It's really nice to see all those different varieties in there. You have the Nemesia, the beautiful white chrysanthemums, and the violas, the three different varieties, the orange, the burgundy, and the yellow with the white chrysanthemums. And then you also have the beautiful ornamental white kale here, and it's really taken off and loves it in this spot. And that's a really cool contrast. And I think this one is more fall-like than any other container that I've ever planted up, and I'm super happy with how everything is growing together. They seem to be really enjoying this spot, and I think it's going to last us for a long time. I'm probably going to have to come back and trim the chrysanthemum that's in the middle, but that's okay because there's plenty of other things happening in this container that keep it interesting, and I know it's going to last through the season, especially with these fall weather-loving plants. All right, and the last area of our garden is where we have these beautiful, ridiculous coleus, and you've seen them in the videos prior where I'm potting up plants on the white table, and these are behind us, and they've done so well. But with that windstorm, I think this area of our garden has sustained the most damage. This pot in particular fell forward, and you can tell that cherry drop coleus got completely mashed on the bottom, which, you know, things happen in the yard for sure. And then also, you can't tell from here, but on the backside, I lost a lot of branches, just like the one near the house. But I can't bring myself to get rid of these just yet because of their beautiful fall color. So I think I might just trim off the bottom there and give them a little bit of a haircut to hopefully sustain them through the season, because the thing with coleus is even here, when we get cooler at night, when we dip down into the 30s, they really don't like that, and they'll start to lose their leaves. They're not as cold tolerant as a lot of our other annuals are. But until that time, I'm going to let them hang on, and then when we get to that point, I might clear them out. But still, they have been such a showpiece in our yard, and I would highly recommend both the cherry drop coleus, that is another trailing coleus like the chocolate drop, and this gorgeous ridiculous. I mean, it's just been fantastic. These are only one plant of each variety. One ridiculous in this pot, one cherry drop in that pot. Such an amazing plant. And we still have blooms here from our annuals, which is really nice to see. Now here in the front, this garden has been so successful this year. I finally figured out what was going on with my roses. They were not getting their drip irrigation, which was a big problem. Anytime you don't give water to anything, obviously it's not going to do very well, and they were definitely on the struggle bus. But all of the other annuals, the pink cashmere and the saffron finch, have been the most successful that I've ever had in this front garden. All right, so here on the front porch, we have these really nice containers that I had potted up early in the summer with the really nice sword fern and the creeping Jenny that's hanging out the front. It just looks so pretty. And then also the Selena yellow begonias. I had one on this side and it ended up getting broken off in a windstorm, so it didn't really come back, but still, if it hadn't have been broken off, I think it would look just as beautiful as this one, still blooming in November. Really remarkable to see all of that beautiful color. And I think my favorite part is how different all of these are. We have the beautiful sword fern in comparison to the bloom of the yellow Solina begonias that have never stopped blooming, by the way. And then the draping or trailing fashion of the creeping Jenny is really nice, and it's interesting to look at for sure. A win on the front porch this year. If we look over here, we have some of our beautiful white surefire begonias still blooming in this container, but I went ahead and came through. This is what I was talking about earlier in the video. I trimmed back these begonias all the way to the base, and you can tell right now, because they were getting a little bit leggy, you can tell right now that they are coming back with a vengeance. I mean, look at that growth on each one of those, and hopefully by the time spring hits again, we'll have that beautiful white bloom. And it's really nice to get multiple years out of the same plant. If you can, you know, plant these and have them treated as a perennial, then the money goes further and they just get healthier and healthier. And it seems like every time I cut them back, they come back stronger. So that's gonna be really nice to see that. My really nice camellia is about ready to start blooming. It's loaded with blooms. This is, I can't remember what variety this is, but it's a beautiful baby pink variety. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll share that with you later. And then the white of the impatiens on top there. And they are kind of struggling just a little bit because of that windstorm that we had. I had to kind of tear off some of those or break off some of those branches, but it's still hanging in there. I might actually trim that back in the near future too. This has also been there for 2 seasons, which is kind of cool to get multiple seasons out of the same annuals. It's kind of neat. So that's it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed our fall garden tour as we showed you what's going on in the front and the backyard. And we really look forward to keeping you updated on everything that we do as we continue to work in our yard and enjoy every bit of the fall that leads into the winter. And then also include you in some of our spring planting, which we're all thinking about right now. So until next time, everybody, take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.